Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says Alimony Guidelines. Education, as we all know, determines the quality of an individual's life. It is a tool which provides people knowledge, enables them to develop the personality and attitude for the rest of their lives. So, irrespective of the gender, whether it is a male or it is a female, every single person has the right to study. But what happens in a patriarchal society? In a patriarchal society, women's rights are very limited. They would not be able to take a decision. All the priorities of their own life will be decided by the patriarchal society. So such is the state that happens when it comes to the patriarchal society. So it is in this particular viewpoint that boys are believed that they are greater. Why? Because they take the responsibility of the older generation, and it is usually assumed that women are the burden when it comes to this patriarchal society. Why? Because they may have to move to the husband's place. Such is the state of mindset when it comes to the patriarchal society. So what exactly happens? In spite of this keen interest to study, this patriarchal society does not let the women study, especially in the rural folds as well as in the traditional and orthodox families. So what exactly happens? Because they have a keen interest to study, but the patriarchal society does not let them study, they will have to live the higher education. Why? Because they are immediately married by the family members of this patriarchal society. So what exactly happens after the marriage? They will have to bear the child as well, and during this particular instance their body may not be ready to bear the child, and because they are married at an early age and because they are not in a position to bear the child, there could be side effects in the form of maternal health issues. So what are the maternal health issues? One, you can also see mortality when it comes to the women, and at the same time you may also see health issues surfacing in all the children as well. This can result in stunting, this can result in wasting, and ultimately the health will have an impact both on the children as well as on the mothers as well. After all these issues, there is another unfortunate outcome as well, which results in what is called as marital discord, marriage not working for varied reasons. What exactly happens when it comes to the marital discord? When it comes to marriages in India, not all marriages are successful. There might be issues between the husband and the wives as well. If the women are independent, they would be able to take charge of their lives as well. But in most of the cases in the rural areas and also in the orthodox family, the women are highly dependent on the men as well. All the financial dependency of the women falls on the husband, and that is where they cannot live a life without the husband. So what is the issue right now? The issue is because they are not highly educated, because they do not know the vagaries of life, that is why all these women who have no education, do not understand the outside world, have to rely on the husbands. That is where the picture of maintenance steps into picture. So what is this maintenance all about? Let us try and understand what is this maintenance. Basically, let's say for example, there is a husband called as X, there is a wife called as Y. So this husband X, in case they are not having compatibility and they want to go on a separation and they ultimately want to divorce each other, there is a particular amount that this person X will have to pay this person Y. Such an amount that has to be paid by the husband to the wife is what is called as maintenance. In this particular case, what the Supreme Court discusses is about the maintenance that has to be given by the husband to the wife, and in case they have the children, they will also have to support the children as well. Kindly remember, this is always gender neutral as well. Let's say for example, there is a wife, she is working really hard, she is wealthy enough as well, and in that particular case, in case there is a poor husband, the wife may also have to pay the maintenance to the husband. But in this particular case, what we are referring is only to husband paying certain maintenance to the wife. So what is that we have to understand. When it comes to maintenance, there are two types of maintenance. One is what is called as temporary maintenance, which is also called as pendant elite. The other is what is called as the permanent maintenance. So what is this temporary maintenance or pendant elite? Let me give you a simple example. Let's say there is a husband and a wife. They are not happy with each other. They want to divorce. So what exactly happens? The wife files an application in the court of law. So who becomes the respondent? It is the husband. During this particular process, where proceedings is actually taking place in the court of law, there is a particular time period during which divorce proceedings is initiated in the court of law. There is no judgment given by the court of law, but proceedings takes place. So this proceedings, from the time when the application is filed up until the judgment is passed, there has to be some money that has to be given by the husband to the wife. So that intermediate period during which the husband has to pay the wife on and in case there are children is what is called as temporary maintenance. So what is a temporary maintenance? It is when a wife files an application and the judgment is yet to be delivered. So the time period from when the application is filed up until the judgment time is what is called as the temporary maintenance. This is what the husband has to pay the wife, and in case there are children, these expenses for the sustenance will have to be given by the husband to the wife. This is what is called as temporary maintenance. Then we have something called as the permanent maintenance. So what is this permanent maintenance? Let's say the court of law has issued an order and passed a judgment. The court in this particular case looks into couple of issues: whether the female is educated, is the man earning enough, what amount should be given, when it has to be given, what amount should be sanctioned to that particular wife, all the circumstances of that particular case, the inflation rate, the city that they are living, all these will be considered by the court of law. And when the judgment is passed and when the husband has to pay a periodic amount after the judgment is passed, that is what is called as permanent maintenance. So a permanent maintenance is usually paid after there is a court of law giving a judgment to that particular proceedings. Now there is a small difference. There are two types of permanent maintenance. To tell you precisely, there is something called as alimony, there is something called as maintenance. So what is the difference between alimony and maintenance? When it comes to alimony, it is a one shot payment. So what is a one shot payment? Let's say for example, there is a husband, there is a wife as well. So in case the husband pays the maintenance for the rest of the life at one single shot, let's say he pays the wife an amount of 25 lakhs, or he pays the wife an amount of 50 lakhs, or he pays the wife an amount of 10 crores or 20 crores at a single shot, that is what is called as alimony. So in alimony, it can be paid in cash or it can be paid by property as well. So a property can be gifted, and that is what is called as alimony. But there is a small difference between maintenance. So what is the maintenance here? Maintenance basically means the court will look into all these circumstances and the husband will have to pay the wife on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis or on an annual basis, or it can be 2 years or 3 years as well. So this prescribed timeline that is given by the court of law considering the circumstances of the case is what is called as maintenance, and if it is paid at a single shot, that is what is called as alimony. This is a small difference between maintenance and alimony. Now what we have to look at is laws when it comes to India. So when it comes to laws, we have to look at two important aspects. So what does Indian Constitution speak about women rights, and what is the Parliament of India has done to make sure that all these maintenance cases are provided and women are also protected from the vagaries of the patriarchal society. First, let us look at the Constitution of India. When you look at the Constitution of India, we have a single most important article, and that is Article 15 of the Indian Constitution. So what is this Article 15 of the Indian Constitution? It speaks about prohibition of discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth. So kindly remember, it prohibits the discrimination even on the basis of sex, which is a male as well as a female. But we also have an exception as well, and that is provided under Article 15 of subclause 3, which clearly goes on to say that nothing in this particular article can prevent the state, that is the government, from making any special provision for women as well as children as well. While we do not discriminate on the basis of sex, there is discrimination that can be provided by the state as a suitable exception both for the women as well as for the children. This is what is present in the constitution under the fundamental rights. Then we have the directive principles of state policy, and that is article 39 of the Indian constitution. What does it speak about? It speaks about equal pay and opportunities for the women, protecting the health of the women as well as children, and these are the two important constitutional safeguards that which is prescribed for the women. In order to protect the women, the parliament has also passed suitable laws as well, and one of the important laws with respect to the maintenance for the Hindus is what is called as the Hindu Marriage Act. With respect to the Muslims, it is called as the Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act of 1986. With respect to Christians, what we have is the Divorce Act of 1869. So in case there is a separation that needs to be taken up by the husband and the wife because they have issues in their relationship, these laws step in and there is maintenance that will be given to either of the spouses depending on the case in the picture. And we also have one of the important criminal procedure codes under section 125, which also speaks about the maintenance as well. So these are some of the fundamental laws which speaks about the maintenance as well as the terms and conditions that will have to be looked by the court of law to provide maintenance to either of the spouses. Now the most important factor is we have to understand certain terms within the purview of this separation. So what are those? First is about sustenance. So what do we mean by sustenance, and how much of the money will have to be given to either of the spouses? And in this particular case, what we are looking at is the husband paying certain money to the wife. So what is the sustenance here? Let's say for example, there is a rich person. They have an annual income of about, let's say, 1 crore, and this particular person has a lavish life. They are the husband and wife. So this wife is acclimatized to living in a posh area and having a lavish life as well. So when there is a separation, when there is a divorce, the husband has to pay a suitable amount such that this female continues to have a lavish life. Let me give you another example. Let's say a person, he is drawing a salary of about 10,000. So this person draws at 10,000. Does this mean that this person will have to give about 1 lakh a month? No. As per the salary that he draws, as per the wealth that he owns, that is how the court looks into it, and this sustenance amount will have to be given by the husband to the wife. That is what is called as sustenance. And we also have to understand the definition of wife as well. Let's say for example, there are a couple, husband and wife, and after the husband and wife, let's say for example, there is a woman who is divorced. Until and unless she does not marry another person, maintenance will be given to this particular person. So a divorcee, in case she marries another person, the maintenance can immediately be stopped as well. So only when a person married, separated, divorced can get this maintenance, only if she is not married to another person. Let me give you another example as well. Let's say there are a couple, husband and wife, they are legally married as well. Now there is an other woman, let's say W1, she gets married illegally to this particular husband. Will she be entitled to maintenance? The answer is a no. Why? Because this person is not divorced to the first wife, but since it is not divorced, the second wife will become an illegal wife and she will not get any maintenance from the court of law, and it will immediately be void in this particular case as well. So that is the definition of wife. And also remember, as we initially discussed, this can be mutual as well. That is, a husband should have to pay a certain maintenance to the wife, and if the wife is wealthy enough, if she is richer than this particular husband, then in such cases the wife need not get any maintenance from the husband as well. So when it comes to the maintenance, it is not an absolute right of a neglected wife to always get the maintenance, and it is not an absolute liability of the husband to support her in all the circumstances. Such is the fate when it comes to the maintenance. Also remember, there is an exception that is given under CRPC 125. So what is this exception given under 125? Let's say for example, there is a husband and wife, and this wife is in adultery relationship with another man. In this particular case, again, the man need not have to give maintenance to the women. Also, let's consider another example where the wife refuses to live with the husband with no issues whatsoever from the husband side. Even in such a case, the husband need not have to give the maintenance to the wife as well. And lastly, there is mutual consent between the husband and wife, and they are separately each other, and they have mutual consent with each other that they want to live separately. Even in such a case, maintenance need not have to be given by the husband to the wife as well. Why are we discussing all this about maintenance? What is the major issue right now? Whenever there is a marital discord or there is husband and wife who want to get separated as well, usually in most of the maintenance cases, they will have to be settled in a time gap of about 60 days. But what is happening of late? There is a harsh reality where these cases run for couple of years. That is because of the legal loopholes that which is prevalent in the system. And at the same time, as we discussed, there are plethora of laws as well. When it comes to the Hindus, we have the Hindu Marriage Act, we also have the CRPC, and then we also have the Domestic Violence Act of 2005. Since there are plethora of laws, again, passing the judgment when it comes to the separation and divorce is getting hectic as well, and that is the primary reason there are a couple of women who are not able to get the maintenance at a particular time, because women are not able to get maintenance at the right time, at the right place, and they are not able to sustain their life because the husband is not maintaining them, because the husband is not giving the money to them. They are facing a loss in their life, and they have become destitute, and they have become homeless as well, and they are also not able to support the children in case they have the children. In order to overcome all these lacunae, the Supreme Court in this particular case has come up with certain guidelines. So what are these guidelines? The Supreme Court has laid some of the uniform and comprehensive guidelines for all the family courts, magistrates, and the lower courts, so that they have to follow these rules and regulations when it comes to the alimony and maintenance, when it comes to the divorce cases. So what are these laws? What are these guidelines? Let's say for example, the Supreme Court says in this particular case, if there is a family court, a magistrate, or a lower court which passes a particular order, and this person, the husband or the other spouse, will have to pay certain amount to the other person in case they are not paying this maintenance as given by the judgment, this person can be civilly detained, and the attachment of the property can also be taken up for providing the maintenance to the spouse as well. So the expenses of the children, including their education, including their basic needs and other vocational activities, will also have to be considered by all these family courts as well. Other factors also include the spiraling inflation rates as well. Let's say for example, the husband has paid about 10 lakhs as a settlement for the wife, but after 10 years there could be a provision where there is increase in the inflation rate as well. She is not able to sustain that particular issue. In this particular backdrop, she can again come back to the husband and ask for the maintenance. So what the court will have to look at is the inflation rate in the present environment and what could happen in 10 years down the lane, and the inflation adjusted rate will also have to step in as well. And moreover, whenever there is dissolution of a marriage and divorce proceedings have been initiated, they also have to look at the age of the marriage, the duration of the marriage, and the employment provision of that particular woman. What do we mean by it? Let's say for example, they are married and they have just married for about 1 year or 2 years, and they have not had children, and the woman is also employed as well. In such a scenario, the maintenance amount can be comparatively less, that which is given from a husband to a wife. But let's say for example, the duration is about 7 years. They are married for about 7 years. They also have a children as well, and just because the woman has to take care of the children and she happens to quit the job because she has been in the house for the last 7 years, going out and finding out a job for her will become a tedious exercise. Why? Because she does not have the experience right now. Because she does not have the experience, getting the job in the outside market will become very difficult. So that is why duration is also taken into picture, and an amount will also have to be given by the family coach as well. Apart from this, we also have to realize that in case there is a disability, let's say the wife is suffering from a disease, or there is the children who are suffering from the disease, or there is another person relying on this wife as a responsibility, this maintenance from the family court, when it is being given to the wife, all these parameters will have to be considered, and only then the judgments will have to be passed, says the Supreme Court guidelines. So what is the significance of this? The significance is that women will get all the right maintenance on time, and this will not be taking into picture the vagaries and the loopholes of law as well. So the minute the application is filed, irrespective of how long the proceedings takes place, the minute it is filed, from then maintenance will have to be given, is what this Supreme Court judgment all about. It is this that we have to understand with reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Haryana clears bill on right to recall Panchayat member. Perform or perish has been given a new meaning in the democracy. What is the context here? Haryana Assembly on Friday passed a bill which provides the right to recall members of the Panchayati Raj institutions to those who elected them, and this particular bill also gives a provision of 50% reservation for the women in all the rural bodies. First thing that we have to understand, what is this right to recall? Let's say, for example, we all know the government of the day is elected by the people of the country. In this particular backdrop, what we have to understand is that people elect the representatives. So the representatives usually stay for 5-year term until and unless they are not suspended because of anti-defection law or any other representative loopholes that is present in the system. Most of the representatives do stay for about 5 years. But what if all these parliamentarians or the member of legislative assembly or people working in the municipalities or in the Panchayati Raj have promised to deliver something to the people of their constituency, but they have not delivered it? So in this particular juncture, in case the people feel that their representatives are not able to keep up to their promise, they can actually ask them to recall, which means remove that particular representative from their constituency after a particular period of time, even before they fulfill their 5-year term, is what is called as the right to recall. So what is this right to recall? It is nothing but the right to remove the elected representatives even before the 5-year full term is actually completed in this particular backdrop. So what are the key features of the bill initiated by the Haryana? Basically, the bill allows the recall of village sarpanches and the members of the block level panchayat samitis and district level zilla parishads if they fail to perform, which means that all those things that they have promised to their constituency people, and if there is a failure to properly discharge all these functions that they have promised, in that particular case they might be removed by the people of that particular constituency when it comes to the panchayat elections, says the Haryana bill. So how does this procedure work? Basically, what should happen is, let's say there is a constituency, there is a ward, about 50% members of this particular ward or the Grama Sabha have to give it in writing that they want to initiate the proceedings. So we have the electoral roll. So there are a couple of people who are present in that particular ward. Let's say hypothetically there are about 100 people in that particular ward. If 50 people give it in writing that they want to initiate such a proceedings, then it can be taken up when it comes to the panchayati. So what exactly happens? After this is initiated, this will also require 2/3 of the members voting against them. So initially about 50% will have to give it in writing that they want to initiate the proceedings to remove the representatives, and after this has been accepted, about 2/3 of the members in that particular constituency will have to vote in a secret ballot so that this representative, elected representatives, can be removed from that particular position. So that is the procedure that has to be followed. So to recall a sarpanch and the members of the two bodies, first what we require is the 50% members writing it, and second what we require is 2/3 of that particular constituency coming and voting in a secret ballot. Is it for the first time that such a discussion has happened and such a bill has been initiated? No. There have been previous discussions, deliberations, and they have been having debates in the Constituent Assembly as well. What was the debate that was present in the Constituent Assembly? There was a simple question asked: who are electing the representatives? It is the people. Since it is the people who are electing the representatives, they should also have the right to remove the elected representatives. Such was the basis when it comes to the Constituent Assembly. At the national level, the right to recall first appeared in the Janata Party government back in the year 1977 as the government agenda, and this was again lapsed as well. Then it again appeared in the year 1989 when the National Front government came into picture as well. They were planning to introduce both at the Lok Sabha level and at the state legislative assembly as well, but this has only remained a speculation. But the right to recall also exists at several local bodies in India. It might not be present in Lok Sabha, it might not be present when it comes to the assembly elections as well, but it is present in the local bodies in certain states like Madhya Pradesh, in Chhattisgarh, as well as in Bihar. Apart from these initiatives in the past and establishment at the local bodies, are there any judgments passed by the Supreme Court? Yes, we do have the judgment, and that was in state of Madhya Pradesh versus Sri Ram Singh. According to this particular judgment, in case we have to establish a corruption free government, one of the tools that we have is the right to recall, says the Supreme Court in this particular judgment. So what is the significance here? The most important factor is the accountability of the elected representatives. We have seen number of issues, scams unfold, corruption in the system, and it has also resulted in criminalization of politics as well. So how do we keep a check? Apart from the 5-year elections, in case they are not able to keep up the promise, there is massive corruption that has unfolded, and this is present in the public media. What we can do is to remove this particular elected representative because they have been corrupted and there is massive scam and corruption in the system. So the first important factor is we would be able to keep all the elected representatives accountable. The second important advantage is most of the politicians in India and the executive may also take arbitrary decisions as well. They may also provide contract not on the basis of bidding, but because they have a close connection with a family member or within a close circle as well. So arbitrary decisions can also be taken up by the politicians as well as the executive, in case the people get to realize that such decision is not on the basis of merit, not on the basis of facts, but on the discretionary power without any merit in it. Then again they can be removed, is the most important factor when it comes to the right to recall. But there are also issues as well. So what are these issues? Whenever there is an honest politician or there is the government of the day, they come up with some of the honest policies. These policies can also be obstructed by the people. Let's say for example, immediately it may not be able to reap the fruits from that particular policy, but on a long term basis, let's say about 10 years down the lane, this particular policy initiative will bear the fruits. Let's say for example, when it comes to Delhi, we have the Delhi metro project. Number of people objected to it. Why? Because there was demolition that was taking place with respect to their buildings, but the government still wanted and continued with the metro project. And now who is reaping the benefits of it? It is the people in India, people of Delhi. So whatever honest policies, in case it is taken up by the politicians and the executive, and if it is not reaping the short term benefits and if it is not against the populist pressure, it means that people can actually recall the elected representatives, which can be a loss to the country. Further, this right to recall may also create a chaos in the administration as well. Let's say there is a political party which has formed the government, and if people decide that there is a particular person from that political party who has to be recalled or removed, this could also result in unstable government as well. And apart from this, the practical aspect of conducting this particular recall will require a huge amount of money. As we all know, conducting elections is a tedious exercise as well. It requires large number of people, huge amount of money. So since this particular protocol of conducting elections will require so much money and people, the same amount of money might not be required, but we again will have to spend money as well for that particular constituency. This will also require the manpower. This again gets wasted in case there is a right to recall that is initiated in that particular constituency. In fact, the Law Commission of India in its 254th report was against this particular procedure or the bill of right to recall. Such has been the disadvantages when it comes to this particular analogy. Also remember, when it comes to right to recall, we have this right to recall passed in couple of states in United States of America. It is present in Canada as well, and it is also present in Switzerland as a country. So these are some of the countries which currently have the right to recall procedure to remove the elected representatives even before they finish their 5-year term. So what is the conclusion that we can draw? This right to recall may look good, but looking at all these disadvantages, we may have to initiate other rules and procedure to keep a check and to enforce the accountability is what we can understand from this particular article. It is this that we have to understand with reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says the price of saying no. This article speaks about stalking in India and how this has led to death of number of girls in India. First important factor is what is stalking. We will look at laws in India. We will understand what are the major concerns, challenges and what needs to be done going forward. First up, what is stalking? Stalking is basically an obsessive behavior of an individual towards an other individual and excessive following, torturing and spying on an other individual in spite of decline of the consent given by another individual. Let me give you a simple example. Let's say there is a male and there is a female as well. So this male constantly follows this particular female in spite of this female rejecting any proposal from this particular male. So the constant spying and forcing oneself onto another person in spite of decline from this female is what is called as stalking. When it comes to stalking, there are 4 different categories. What are those? One is that this particular person follows another person and passes lewd comments. There is constant staring that takes place in a threatening manner. They are followed, they are scared and they are made to feel uncomfortable. They are even touched and groped indefinitely as well. Since all these cases of stalking was increasing in India and we had the heinous gang rape on Nirbhaya as well, that is when Criminal Law Amendment Act was introduced in the year 2013. This basically introduced one of the important sections in the Indian Penal Code, and that is what is called as section 354 of D. Under this particular provision, stalking is defined as an act where a man follows a woman, contacts her, attempts to contact her, fosters personal interaction with her despite the woman actually showing no interest in that particular man. If she has rejected and she has told no to it and she is periodically saying no to this particular interest generated by a man, such is what is called as stalking in this particular case as per section 354D of the Indian Penal Code. Whenever such a case is taken by the court of law and it is proved in the court of law that this man has committed stalking under 354D of the Indian Penal Code, when it comes to the first conviction, there will be an imprisonment for a term of years and he can be imposed with fine as well. And in case of second or subsequent conviction, it can also be 5 years of imprisonment and fine as well. Kindly remember, when it comes to the first conviction, it is a bailable offense, so he can seek for the bail, and when it comes to the second or the subsequent conviction, what we can realize is that this becomes a non-bailable offense. Now, what are the major concerns when it comes to stalking? Stalking in most of the cases is ignored by the girl and it is also ignored by her parents as well. They either don't take it seriously or prefer to keep it mum when it comes to this particular issue because their social prestige can also come under impact as well. That is why most of the stalking cases are ignored both by the girls as well as by their parents. Stalking sometimes can also turn violent and lethal as well, and this can also result in death of that particular individual, as it has happened in the present scenario. Stalking also takes a toll on the mental health of the victims. What exactly happens? The victims start moving to a different place, they change the jobs as well, and they also try to evade their identity as well. And in few of the cases, some of the victims either drop out of the colleges, they also drop out of the schools because of the harassment inflicted by this particular accused. And when it comes to registering cases against these accused, in most of the cases, the victims do not go to the police stations, and even if they go, they are not taken seriously by the police officers. Why? Because they engage themselves in compromise and they do not register any FIR when it comes to the stalking as well. Even if it ends up in the court of law, many of the cases are still in pending cases. Investigation does not take place, and this also lead to very less conviction when it comes to the stalking as well. Also remember, when it comes to the stalking, we have to remember that this law is not gender neutral. What do we mean by it? It means it is considered illegal only when a man actually goes about stalking a woman, but that is not vice versa. So if a woman goes about stalking a man, that is not considered stalking in this particular case. So this happens to be a major challenge when it comes to section 354D of the Indian Penal Code. So what is the way forward when it comes to stalking? It is important that all these cases are taken more seriously. Technology should be used and they should be encouraged to be used, and what we require is a time bound trial that can help in more convictions when it comes to stalking. As we initially discussed, when it comes to the first conviction under section 354 of T, it is a bailable offense. So according to NCRB, about 80% of the people accused of stalking are given bail even before the charge sheet is filed by the police officer. So what should happen right now? Stalking should become a non-bailable offense even on the first conviction as well. Followed by this, the police needs to be sensitized about the issue. They will have to report and take up all these cases and file an FIR in this particular case when it relates to harassment as well as stalking as well. Also, there needs to be a change with respect to the collective consciousness within the society as well. The offense needs to be taken seriously. We need to communicate more and more with our children, especially during the teenage years as well. As much as we speak about the girls and how they have to report all these instances to the parents as well as to the police officers, we also have to guide the boys as well as tell them not to stalk and speak about women in a negative way, and at the same time we need to teach them about stalking and how it can be having an impact on another women as well. Such is the case of sensitivity that we may have to push into the thought process of a boy during the teenage period is what this article all about. It is this that we have to understand with reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Biden, India and comfort in the old normal. Today, as we look at the world's oldest democracy, we see two important issues. One is the transfer of the power from one political party to another is not smooth, and two, United States of America is divided on the racial lines than ever before, threatening the very idea of melting pot of culture. In this particular backdrop, looking at the present numbers, in all likelihood, it is going to be the Democratic candidate Joe Biden who may win the elections. In this particular backdrop, we can pay our attention to predicting what would be his foreign policy and the changes that we may have to witness when it comes to India and United States of America. Before we understand what would be his plans with respect to the foreign policy, let's have a bird eye view about the past of the politics. He worked as an attorney before turning into politics. He was a US Senator from Delaware State, and he was the 47th Vice President of the United States under Barack Obama. Back then and until recently, United States of America was fighting a longest war in Afghanistan. to win this particular war against terrorism, the United States of America's general wanted to increase the troop strength to nearly 4 lakh. So what exactly happens? Barack Obama, as the president, requests the vice president, that is Joe Biden, to check whether there has to be an increase in numbers, the soldier strength in Afghanistan. This particular person, Joe Biden, looks into this particular issue. He speaks to his foreign policy experts. He also pays couple of visits to this particular country of Afghanistan, and he comes to a conclusion that United States of America need not have to increase the number of soldiers in Afghanistan. Instead, they have to withdraw from Afghanistan. So what is that we can draw? So when you look at this particular analogy, we would be able to draw a conclusion that Joe Biden's policy was as similar to that of the Donald Trump. What is Donald Trump doing right now? He's planning to withdraw all his forces from Afghanistan. He's also making sure that Taliban is on the negotiating table as well, which Joe Biden had also proposed to Barack Obama as well. But Barack Obama did not take these views of John Biden, and he went with the views of the US generals and increased the strength of the military in Afghanistan. So the inference that we can draw when it comes to Joe Biden and Trump is that the Afghanistan policy is very similar. So a similar ancillary would be that the foreign policy with respect to Joe Biden and Trump will not be massive changes, but there'll be only minuscule changes when it comes to the foreign policy. And now when it comes to dealing with Pakistan, Joe Biden was also given the highest civilian honor called as Hilal-e-Pakistan. So he also favored that whenever there is a talk in Afghanistan, we always will have to engage Pakistan to directly deal with Taliban as well. Such have been the references from Joe Biden, which is again followed by Donald Trump as well. And now when we speak about strategic angle with respect to India, in the Obama administration, there was a particular term called as Asia Pacific, and when it comes to the Trump administration, what we have is the Indo-Pacific policy. So these similar policies can again be taken up when it comes to the United States of America under the Joe Biden administration. Then there are a couple of military foundational agreements as well. It can be in the form of BECA, it can be in the form of LEMA, and all these actions and agreements with respect to India and United States of America will be again continued by Joe Biden as well. And now when it comes to the economics, we all know for the fact that the Trump administration believed in America first policy. There were restrictions that were imposed. India was also removed from the general system of preferences as well. Our exports also dropped comparatively, both in terms of iron, both in terms of steel as well, and other exports comparatively. But now when it comes to the Joe Biden administration, there will be reinstatement of the generalized system of preferences, where there is a possibility of increasing the exports to the United States of America. And when it comes to the visas, there were again issues with respect to the Trump administration, but it is generally believed that Democrats are more favoring when it comes to welcoming Indians because of India's outsourcing industry to the United States of America. So this is not all. There have been frictional areas as well. When you look at the leadership of the Democratic Party, you have a couple of people like Mark Warner, Pramila Jayapal, who have been particularly vocal about the Jammu and Kashmir, the Citizenship Amendment Act, communal and caste-based violence, actions against non-governmental organizations, and media freedom as well. Such is the state which can result in friction between United States of America if Democrats come into power and with the present government. Then we also have to wait and watch how the multilateral world order will be reorganized or not. What exactly happened during the Trump administration? The funding to the World Health Organization was suspended. They were withdrawing themselves from the Paris Agreement. They had made sure that they're completely out from the Iran nuclear deal, and number of other important programs like the UNESCO, Human Rights Council, Transatlantic and Trans-Pacific alliances were all suspended. What we have to wait and watch is whether the Joe Biden administration will get back to it, or it will keep United States of America suspended from this multilateral world order. order. And at the same time, in case there is a country, let's take the example of China, which has been violating the rules-based international order in South China Sea and has been increasingly becoming aggressive and is also conducting the expansionist policy. In such a case, how will the Joe Biden administration handle it is what we have to wait and watch, says this particular article. On a conclusion bit, irrespective of which political party comes in any country, India will have to have a good relationship as well. So what we have to revert back is on building the relationship irrespective of the political party, whether it is Democrats or whether it is Republicans. The government of India will have to establish fruitful relationship, says this article. It is this that we have to understand with reference to this article. Now let's look into some of the preliminary practice questions. Which of the following have been accorded geographical indication status? Araku Valley coffee, Bikanari Bhujia, Darjeeling tea, Dharwad Peda. Select the correct answer using the code given below. The answer to this is 1, 2, 3 and 4. All the 4 have been given the geographical indication status. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. Now let's look into the next practice question. Novichok recently seen in news. Is it a newly discovered virus, an asteroid, a nerve agent or a robo? The answer to this is Novichok is a nerve agent. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. So what is this Novichok? What is this nerve agent? What is its link to the Chemical Weapons Convention has been explained in one of our videos, and the link for the same will be given in our description box, so kindly look into it. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements. It is a landlocked country in Africa. The country hosts Africa's diplomatic capital. It is the only country in Africa with its unique script. Coffee, one of the world's most popular beverages, was discovered in this country. The above statements best describes which country. Is it Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, Ethiopia or Zimbabwe? The answer to this is Ethiopia. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements. The Election Commission of India is a 5-member body. Union Ministry of Home Affairs decides the election schedule for the conduct of both general and by-elections. Election Commission resolves the disputes relating to splits and mergers of recognized political parties. Which of the statements given above is correct? The answer to this is 3 only. Why? It is not the Union Ministry of Home Affairs, but instead it is the Election Commission which decides the election schedule. Now let's look into the mains practice question. Maintenance loss will mean little if they do not prevent dependent wives and children from falling into destitution and vagrancy. Discuss the significance of Supreme Court guidelines for payment of maintenance in matrimonial cases. Next question. To deepen democracy, the right to recall must be given hand in hand with the right to vote. Critically examine. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review. Come up with constructive criticism. This is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.